whatever the time is where you are. We will be reading a bedtime ASMR story for you. This is My Chess Career by José Raul Capablanca. He wrote this book just before he started playing for the World Championship. So he actually became world champion after this, so his chess career continued. But José Raul Capablanca is one of the best chess players of all time. He's Magnus Carlsen's favorite chess player, and this is my favorite chess book. So what we will do is I will show the first game he gives in the book, but first I will read you the preface or the author's note about the book, and I will read you his comments about the game while I play through it. While I read the author's note or the intro or the preface to this book, I'm thinking I'll put some game with no commentary, the Frank Marshall versus Capablanca famous game. I'll put that on screen along with some pictures of Capa maybe. Author's note of My Chess Career by José Raul Capablanca. This book proposes to meet a general demand that I should tell the events and circumstances that have made me what I am today in the chess world. In writing it, I have endeavored to tell the truth, what I think of certain games, positions and other things, at the risk at times of appearing extremely conceited to those who don't know me well personally. Conceit I consider a foolish thing, but more foolish still is that false modesty that vainly attempts to conceal that which all facts tend to prove. I have not given any drawn or lost games because I thought them inadequate to the purpose of the book. There have been times in my life when I came very near thinking that I could not lose even a single game. Then I would be beaten and the lost game would bring me back from dreamland to earth. Nothing is so healthy as a thrashing at the proper time, and from few won games have I learned as much as I have from most of my defeats. Of course, I would not like to be beaten at a critical moment, but otherwise I hope that I may at odd times in the future lose a few more games, if thereby I derive as much benefit as I have obtained from defeats of the past. The notes I have written with great care, and I trust that no mistakes will be found, and that they will tend to clear up points which heretofore may have remained obscure. I also hope that they will be found both instructive and interesting, and that the book as a whole will meet the approval of the legion of chess players throughout the world, and especially of the many friends with whose wishes I have tried to comply by lifting the veil of that which was never a mystery, my chess career. J.R. Capablanca. Part 1. Chapter 1. Introductory. The object of this little book is to give the reader some idea of the many stages through which I have passed before reaching my present strength, and of my way of thinking nowadays when faced by a worthy opponent. No doubt it must be interesting to know how one of the strongest players in the world has obtained his strength, through what processes he has passed, his way of thinking when not yet developed, how his thoughts and ideas gradually change until the present day, and whether or not these thoughts and ideas would still be capable of further development or changes. Apart from the psychological interest, there ought to be many points of practical value to those desirous of attaining a certain degree of proficiency in chess. As I go along narrating my chess career, I will stop at those points which I consider most important, giving examples of my games with my own notes written at the time the games were played, or when not, expressing the ideas I had while the game was in progress. This will make the book different from all others, and I believe more interesting. At the end, if space permits, I will add some points that will be useful, principally to beginners, but some of which may also be of value to more experienced players. I was born in Havana, the capital of the island of Cuba, the 19th of November, 1888. I was not yet 5 years old when, by accident, I came into my father's private office and found him playing with another gentleman. I had never seen a game of chess before. The pieces interested me, and I went the next day to see them play again. The third day, as I looked on, my father, a very poor beginner, moved a knight from a white square to another white square. His opponent, apparently not a better player, did not notice it. My father won, and I proceeded to call him a cheat and to laugh. After a little wrangle, during which I was nearly put out of the room, I showed my father what he had done. He asked me how and what I knew about chess. I answered that I could beat him. He said that that was impossible, considering that I could not even set the pieces correctly. We tried conclusions, and I won. That was my beginning. A few days after, my father took me to the Havana Chess Club, where the strongest players found it impossible to give me a queen. About that time, the Russian master Taubenhaus visited Havana, and he declared it beyond him to give me such odds. Later in Paris, in 1911, Mr. Taubenhaus would often say, "I am the only living master who has given Mr. Capablanca a queen." Then followed several years in which I only played occasionally at home. The medical men said that it would harm me to go on playing. When 8 years old, I frequented the club on Sundays, and soon Don Celso Golmayo, the strongest player there, was unable to give me a rook. After 2 or 3 months, I left Havana and did not play chess again until I returned. I was 11 years old then, and Harry Nelson Pillsbury had just visited the club and left everybody astounded at his enormous capacity and genius. Don Celso Golmayo was dead, but there still remained Vasquez and J. Corzo, the latter having just won the championship from the former. In this atmosphere, in 3 months, I advanced to the first rank. In order to test my strength, a series of games was arranged in which I was to play 2 games against each one of the first-class players. All the strong players took part in the contest except Vasquez, who had just died. The result proved that I stood next to the champion J. Corzo, to whom I lost both games. Chapter 2. The Match with J. Corzo. Some of my admirers thought that I should have a good chance of beating J. Corzo. They attributed my defeats to the fact that I had never seen a chess book and urged me to study. One of them gave me several books, among which one on endings. I liked the endings and studied some of them. Meanwhile, the match with Corzo was arranged. The winner of the first 4 games, draws not counting, would be declared the victor. I began to play with the conviction that my adversary was superior to me. He knew all the openings, and I knew none. He knew many games of the great masters by heart, things of which I had no knowledge whatever. Besides, he had played many a match and had the experience and all the tricks that go along with it, while I was a novice. The first 2 games were quickly won by him, but something in the third, which was a draw, showed me that he had his weaknesses, and gave me the necessary courage and confidence. From there on, he did not win a game, and only scored 5 more draws before I won the 4 required. The victory made me, morally at least, the champion of Cuba. I was then 12 years old. I had played without any book knowledge of the openings. The match gave me a better idea of them. I became more proficient in the middle game and decidedly strong once the queens were exchanged. Of the games of the match, I append 2. They show the vivacious spirit of enterprise and combination proper in a youngster, but lack naturally some of the compact, machine-like force which characterizes the games of the great masters. However, in one of them, I could not have carried the attack even today with greater force and efficiency. Here are the 2 games. Game number 1, the Hempe Elgir Thorold Gambit, White J. Corzo, Black José Raul Capablanca. And thanks to Brilliant for sponsoring this video. It's no secret that I love Brilliant. I'm currently trying to learn how to build my very own large language model like ChatGPT, and of course Brilliant has broken the whole process up into these bite-sized, super easy and intuitive lessons that just makes it a joy to learn for me rather than a chore. And of course, if you'd rather learn how, GPS actually works, or if you want to get a deeper understanding of geometry, Brilliant got you covered. In fact, they have courses on every subject under the sun. And if you use my link, you can get a 30-day free trial. And also the first 200 of you, dear ASMR Chess viewers, will get a 20% discount on a premium annual subscription on Brilliant. So thank you very much. 1 pawn to king 4. This book is written in old notation. So king 4 is this square e4 when it's white's move. But now black moves pawn to king 4 as well, and that is this move. Because it's the 4th square from the side of the king. It sounds much cooler, this old notation, but the modern algebraic notation I find is superior. Okay, we see knight to queen's bishop 3. Knight to queen's bishop 3. And then we see knight to queen's bishop 3 by Capablanca, 12-year-old Capablanca. And now we have pawn to bishop 4. And it only says bishop 4 because this pawn can't move. So it's this move here. Sort of, it is apparently called the Hampe Elgaya Thorold Gambit. It looks quite similar to the King's Gambit. And here we have a little note by Capablanca. Corzo knew my complete lack of book knowledge. Consequently, he tried repeatedly to play gambits of this sort where it would be difficult for me to find the proper answer. Let's see if Capablanca can find the proper answer. Pawn takes pawn. Okay. And knight to bishop 3. So, ideas very similar to the King's Gambit. We will probably see, what would that be? Pawn to queen 5 pretty soon. So we see pawn to king's knight 4. Interesting. Pawn is, am I doing that right? Pawn to king's knight 4. That's not king's knight 4. I'm just so used to this being the knight square. No, but this is king's knight 4. This is the king's knight here, and this is the 4th square. Being protected by the queen. Looks like a King's Gambit accepted to my eyes with the inclusion of these two knight moves. Then we have pawn to king's rook 4. So the king's rook 4, trying to undermine this. And then we have pawn to knight 5. So we just push this further, attacking here. Again, these ideas look very similar to those in the King's Gambit. Then we have knight. We have knight to king's knight 5. So the king's knight is here. This is the 5th square. This is the 5th square. So knight goes here, protected here. It looks like a very good position for white, but black is of course a pawn up. Pawn to king's rook 3. King's rook 3. Pawn attacking here. So will we see a sacrifice on, I would say f7, but it's the king's bishop 2. Will we see that? Or no, it would be the king's bishop 7 from white's side. Will we see that? Yes, but they write it just knight takes pawn, because there is only one knight that can take a pawn, and this is the only pawn it can take. So it just says knight takes pawn. And then I guess we will see king takes knight. King takes knight. And then pawn to queen 4. So what has happened here is that José Raul Capablanca, 11 years old, he has only given up this pawn, and he has won a knight and a pawn. But of course, we have some extremely strong development from his opponent. Excellent center control, attacking the king's bishop 4 pawn already. And we have a possible check here on queen's bishop 4. And we can maybe castle to get the rook to the king's bishop 1 with attack against the king. So it looks very dangerous for black, but let's see how he tries to get out of it. Okay, he plays pawn to queen 4, and there is a note that says, afterwards Corzo told me that the book recommended pawn to queen 3. So this apparently at the time was the theoretical move, but this is what Capablanca played. We see pawn takes pawn, and this is defended, so we cannot see queen takes pawn. So what is Capa going to do? He's going to play queen to king 2 check. Aha. So he goes to king 2. This is check to the king. Aha. Okay, and now there is a note here. We had played this variation in a previous game, and Corzo had answered with bishop to king 2 to this check. The game ended in a draw, but I should have won. Corzo analyzed the position and told someone that he should have played king to bishop 2. When I heard this, I analyzed the situation myself and decided to play it again, as I thought that black should win with the continuation which I put in practice in this game. So, king to bishop 2, this move here. And apparently, somebody had told, a little bird had whispered in Capablanca's ear that Corzo thought that he should have played this. And Capablanca had then made preparations against this move, thinking that he could win the game from there. And his plan was to play pawn to knight 6 check. And then I guess the king will have to go to knight. King to knight, it just says king to knight. And now there's of course this threat here. If we can land the queen on king 6, I guess it would be from the black perspective, it would be checkmate, but currently it's defended by the bishop. Okay. Now we have knight takes pawn. Can that be right? Knight takes pawn. And queen takes knight. Alright, so what is his plan here? This is threatening this rook. And it's giving up a lot of material. He's giving material back. So what is his plan? Queen to bishop 4. Aha! This is bishop 4 from the queen's perspective. And the point here is you cannot capture that, because queen takes queen, bishop takes queen, that is check. And if you try to interpose this bishop, you just capture it, and that will be checkmate, actually. So that is quite interesting. So we see knight to king 2 instead, going backwards to defend the queen. And now we may be considering to come in with this bishop and capture this pawn here. So what did Capablanca have in store for this? We see queen to knight 3. So going back with the queen. That is quite interesting. Will we see queen takes queen? Queen to knight 3. Queen takes queen. And then rook pawn takes queen. And then knight to queen 2. So this knight, the knight to queen 4, this knight jumps into the game. But I think bishop here will be very problematic. Is that what he plays? Bishop to queen's bishop 4, yes. Here. Now, of course, so we probably have to play this move here to defend the knight. After bishop to queen's bishop 4. Pawn to bishop 3, yes. And rook to rook 5. Coming here, just saying I'm going to sacrifice the exchange. And he's just banking on this checkmating attack against the king here on the dangerous dark square diagonal. Then we have bishop to king 2. So this bishop goes here. Now we have no checkmate threats, but will we still see rook takes knight? Because the king now has this escape square. So maybe that's not so good anymore. He plays bishop takes knight, check. I guess we see pawn takes bishop, pawn takes bishop, and I guess we see rook takes pawn now. Rook takes the queen pawn, and pawn to knight 3. So this pawn goes up here, and we have sort of gotten out of the opening here. So the opening was characterized. By first this gambit and piece sacrifice by white, then the counter sacrifice of a piece to gain this attack against the king. We saw some checkmating threats. With the queen, it was all about this diagonal, and now that has all sort of been resolved, and we are in this middle game type situation here. And if we take stock of this situation, we have these two bishops for white. We can see a bishop coming here that would be very nice, skewering the two rooks. So that's probably the main threat of playing this. Pawn to knight 3. This bishop could maybe come here if you want to stop the advance of these pawns. Could go to to bishop 3. Otherwise, we have checks. So the bishops are quite good, and this rook can be activated. However, this rook may be a little hard to activate. And if we take stock of the material count, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pawns, 2 minor pieces, 2 heavy pieces, against 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pawns, 2 minor pieces and 2 heavy pieces. So black is up material by a pawn, but of course he has the bishop pair. His dark squared bishop could be very strong. It does look like black can develop an attack pretty quickly, though. Let's see what happens. So after pawn to knight 3, we see knight to bishop 3 here, and bishop to knight 2, attacking this rook and this knight and this rook. So we see rook to queen 7. Yes, so this is a fork against these two. So what did white, what did Corzo have in mind against this? What's his plan here? He cannot get out of it with this check because it's defended by the knight. So what is the defense against this? It is actually just this bishop check. And the point is, let's see if Capablanca takes it. The point is, yeah, knight takes bishop. The point is that the bishop can now capture the rook because this knight was pinned. And I guess that's what we will see. We see bishop takes rook, absolutely. And after bishop takes rook, we see pawn to bishop 6. Wow. Now this could be very dangerous very, very quickly. This is very close to just being checkmate, actually. And we have this check also. So I guess we have to capture that. So he's giving up, Capablanca giving up the exchange here for a very nice attack. Let's see how it turns out. So we do see pawn takes pawn. I think that's forced. Because this square was very, very weak. And then we see knight to bishop 5. So this is bishop 5, and we are now threatening to come in again with a check here. And maybe this bishop will also play a role because the king could maybe escape on the light squares, but this light squared bishop could come in somehow, some way to aid in the attack. Okay. So what do we see? We see bishop to king 5. So this is king 5 for white, so the bishop drops back and attacks the knight. The knight, will we see a rook check? Will we see a knight check? What will we see? How is young Capablanca coming out of this? How about rook takes, king here, rook check, king here, knight here, picking up the bishop? Does that work? I think that may work. Knight to bishop, bishop to king 5, rook to knight 7 check here, and then king to bishop. That's the only legal move. Then rook to bishop 7 check here, and if we go here, then this knight here is checkmate. So you have to go here, and okay, rook to bishop 7 checkmate, king to king, it just says king to king, and then knight queen 6 check. Yes, queen 6. This is check. The king, the only legal move is here, and I think we just pick up the bishop. So white resigned here. Let's say we just just take the bishop. What's the situation like here? I mean, this pawn is going to be tough to defend. We have 1, 2, we have 5 pawns versus 5 pawns, rook versus rook, and then 2 light pieces versus a heavy piece. So I mean, there definitely could be something to fight for, but it's very tough. I mean, how are we stopping this, for instance? Let's say we try to go here with the king in order to stop this, because we could then capture here, but we're actually still going to capture here, but I don't think we're playing this move. I just think we're going to capture here with check. And there's just impossible actually to stop this pawn. We have to go back now, and now we attack. If you try to block it, I'm going to capture it. And it's just going, like, you're just going to be left with no pieces at all. So yeah, that's that game. That's the first chapter here, the first game in my chess career, the great and glorious chess career, one of the most impressive chess careers in the history of the game, by Capablanca. And I'm thinking you can put in a comment if you want me to do more of these games, do more of this book, more bedtime reading, chess bedtime reading. So thank you very much for being here, for listening to my chess story, for analyzing the game with me. I hope you will sleep tight if you want to sleep. I hope you will have a very relaxing time. Thank you so much for watching. I hope I will see you in the next video.